the noblemen who consumed Reishi, they had much healthier skin, they looked younger, they aged slower, they lived longer, they felt sick lesser. We share 50%, more than 50% of our DNA with fungi.
Mushroom. So you're saying type 2 diabetic people, if they consume
Cordyceps extract
long enough, which is what? 4 months?
3 to 4 weeks, they will be able to see a result.
Okay, so
right?
in about a month or two, they should be able to see better blood sugar regulation.
Absolutely. When I moved to Bangalore, I had a really bad bout of allergies, and that's when I tried it. And I took it with zero expectations. But within month 3, I started noticing that I didn't need the medicines on an everyday basis. And another 3 months later, I was able to stop it completely. And what makes mushroom super fascinating and why is there such a lot of buzz around it is because of a bunch of things. First thing is it can be grown on waste.
It doesn't need soil.
It doesn't need soil. It can be grown, and literally it can be grown anywhere.
What's the mission you're on?
The mission is very simple, to bring the healing benefits of mushrooms to the people and the planet.
There is a conversation around mushrooms worldwide. Like you do take supplementations in form of pills and different things. Now we're discovering that mushrooms can do that. Like
Right.
something that's occurring in nature can actually help you with maybe anxiety, maybe sleep and depression and so
Right.
many other things, right? It's a whole world out there that we
Right.
don't know anything about, which is
Right.
why I want to have this conversation with you. Teach us about mushrooms. Welcome to another episode of the Find Your Ultra podcast. If you've dabbled into the world of supplements, you would know that mushrooms actually hold great potential. Today's conversation is with Jashid Hameed, who is the co-founder of Nuvedo, a company that is leading India's mushroom revolution. In this episode, we've spoken about their journey and we've also tried to learn about the world of mushrooms. It's a different world out there, the world of fungi. Even if you think mushrooms don't really interest you, listen to this conversation. You will get interested. And so without further ado, here's Jashid Hameed and me in the Find Your Ultra podcast, episode, I think 83. Indulge away. Jashid, welcome to the Find Your Ultra podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to finally be here with you.
Yeah, thank you for making it all the way. I'm glad we're doing this. We've been talking for months now.
Right.
And I'm so glad I'm excited to learn about mushrooms. And before that, we'll actually spend some time getting to know the person
Okay.
and a little bit of their journey before we get to know their message.
Sure.
So, yeah, take us to your childhood.
Okay. So I'm somebody who spent most of my time in Kerala. The first 18 years of my life was in Kochi. So Kochi is a small not so small now, but it used to be a small seaside town. And I went to the same school. From my nursery till 12th, I was in the same school. So that's sort of from about my childhood. But another thing is that I was always into sports. I was fairly active. I was a really big fan of martial arts movies. So my dad got me into karate at a very young age. So I started learning martial arts at the age of 6. And then I got my black belt when I was in 7th standard. I was one of the youngest black belts in my style.
Lovely.
And from there, then basketball started because after 7th, I
So
started
tall.
getting
Yeah.
taller.
Hmm.
So from there, I started getting into basketball. And then basketball went on till end of my university. I played during my post-graduation days also. In between that, there was some weightlifting, powerlifting. Things kept coming and going. But I feel like I love being active. And sports and movement have been a really big part of my life. And another really important part of my life is nature. So my mom still says this. I spent most of my childhood watching Animal Planet and Discovery. Yeah, the cartoons were definitely there.
Yeah.
But Steve was like a godlike figure for me.
Okay.
And my mom still thinks that one of the reasons that I went into mushrooms is because I watched too much Discovery and Animal Planet as a kid. So
You can't rule that out.
you can't
actually.
rule that out. Yeah, you don't know,
Yeah.
right? So I was a very curious kid, a very active person, loved nature. So in a nutshell, that was me till high school.
But you were also brilliant at studies.
I was fairly good at studies and science especially because I was a really curious kid. I really wanted to know things and I was genuinely trying to understand science. So that was something that I was good at. And that's sort of what led me into taking up engineering because if you're in India and you're a child in a school where you're excelling at science, then you know what that means.
Exactly.
IIT, BITS
Yeah.
Pilani, entrance coaching. That's the pinnacle that
Yeah.
you're trained for, right? That's the dream that you're sort of given. So that's what happened with me also.
So BITS Pilani is where you went.
Bitspilani is where I went.
But
after
then you
school.
shattered your parents' dreams by not following through. Like you did, of course,
I did.
complete your engineering.
I did. I finished
And
my
then-
engineering.
But then after that, they would have envisioned like you doing a job maybe somewhere in the US or.
Then, yeah, after that, a whole MBA, right?
Yeah.
Once you finish your engineering, that's not it, right? You
Right.
have to get into an IIM,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, the engineering degree is not complete.
Right.
You do the engineering so that you can be an IIM grad
IIM.
with an engineering degree,
Yes.
right? So I did the same thing.
Mm.
I wrote my CAT, got into IIM Indore,
Hmm.
did fairly well there, got through campus placements, got into retail operations at an MNC, worked there for almost 4 years, did really well there. That's when the dreams sort of got
Yeah.
shattered,
Hmm.
you can say.
What happened?
I think it was, I always knew that I was not meant for corporate, right? Because I was sort of a misfit and a rebel wherever I was. And that was true even in my corporate career. That was the first time I was exploring my leadership. So I was in a role where I was managing 20 stores for a fashion brand and I had full P&L ownership, which means that store is yours. You're a business owner, right? So you have a team of 20 managers that you're dealing with. Some younger than you, some older than you, people who have been in the system for 20, 30 years, right? And I was a young guy, first job right out of college. And the first 2-3 years for me was super exciting because it was me discovering my leadership style. How do you manage people? And the thing about leadership is there's no right or wrong way to do this.
Right.
Because finally it's about getting people to do things and getting
Yeah.
things done.
Yeah.
You can do that with brute force, or you can inspire people, or you
Yeah.
can do a mix of both. So for me, it was super exciting because it gave me the opportunity to understand what kind of leader I am in a real life scenario. And also gave me the confidence that I can run my own business, because if I can run a 20 crore business for a brand where I'm taking care of the whole P&L,
Yeah.
starting from your sales, which is the top line, and then your hiring costs and rentals, all of that, then bottom line, I felt like I had the confidence to sort of start my own business, you know. So when I was there, I was working in fast fashion. So after the first 2 years of working, whereas everything was new and I was trying to figure out who I am and what work means, I derived a lot of pleasure from working with people. And I had the highest number of internal promotions in my team.
Okay.
I got a lot of people onto the company payroll. So I developed a lot of managers internally into leaders, right? And I was really loving that.
Nice.
So my relationship with my team was really good. But that newness slowly disappears, right? Then the monotonous nature of work sort of starts to dawn on you.
Yeah.
Then the larger question of where is my time going?
Yeah.
What am I doing with this? And what's the larger impact of my actions on a day-to-day basis? So essentially, I was selling clothes to people.
Yeah, and
Which
fast
is-
fashion is the opposite of people who love nature.
Exactly. So every day I was asking myself, why am I selling clothes to people which are not meant to last, and making them feel like they need to buy this, right?
Yeah.
So I was manipulating people to buy things that they did not
That's what
need.
marketing does.
Absolutely. And that didn't really sit well with me. That's when it started coming up that I don't think this is what I want to do. But then the question of what next, right? Because in India, there is no, place for a career gap. What is a 2-year
yeah.
gap in your resume,
Yeah.
right? Who's going to hire you, right?
Yeah.
Then that fear kicks in, the
Yeah.
insecurities kick in, and they're like, you cannot, like anybody you ask, at least most of the people who have been in corporate for a good
Yeah.
number of years, they'll say that if there is a gap of 2 years,
Yeah.
then you get left behind.
Yeah. You maybe explore startups or your own business, or like even
Right.
if you have to get a job in a job, you probably get it in startups,
Correct.
not in corporates.
Right. And job in startup is also not something that, people are really looking for, because you want something stable. You want to work in a legacy company,
Yeah.
a big brand where you're safe and you have a good package and all of that, right? All the jazz.
Yeah.
But finally, I realized I'm not satisfied. And I understood that I need to do something that gives me satisfaction on a day-to-day basis. That's when this whole journey of what to do next came about. And fortunately, I had my now wife, then girlfriend, and now business partner Prithvi with
Yeah.
me. I think both of us gave each other the strength to do this. So we left, we quit our jobs, we packed our bags.
You were working together?
We were not working together.
Okay.
So I was in fast fashion, Prithvi was in quantum cybersecurity. She was
Wow.
one of the co-founders of India's now largest quantum cybersecurity firm, Deep Tech,
Wow.
right? So she is a 0 to 1 person. She loves building things. And when the company had sort of reached that stage, she also felt like, okay, the excitement's not there anymore. And then we both sort of set off on this path together of trying to find meaning.
Mm.
And I think those 2 years where we just went were the most transformative years of our life because we just left. We packed everything that we could in 2 bags. I left all my furniture, I sold everything, and we just went. We registered in different farms. So there's worldwide network of organic farms. It's a website where you can register.
Okay.
And you volunteer your time there, and they take care of your stay and your food, right? So we worked in a bunch of organic farms across India.
Oh.
And that's when it truly sort of came about, when we had the realization of what really matters in life.
But why organic farms?
Because we wanted to be in nature, we wanted to work with nature and possibly be in the food and wellness space. These are things that we were pretty sure about.
Okay.
We wanted to create a lifestyle that we could live on a day-to-day basis and also which would sort of feed us and have a larger impact, right?
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do. Create something together or be a part of something in which we can make some larger impact. And we felt like food systems were the base of this, because in COVID, finally, that's when people had the realization that you're sitting on the app waiting for the slot to buy sabji.
Yeah.
The things that you're taken for granted. And suddenly you're asking questions of where is my food coming from?
Yeah.
Who has touched it? Who has grown it? Where is it packaged?
Yeah.
That's sort of when the realization hit that food and wellness is the place to be, because the technology and the fashion is only as good as the people who use them or who wear them.
Yeah.
So that's when the realization happened. And then when we got on this path, we met more and more people who are outside the system but who are doing really well.
Okay.
Their health was in the best shape. They were eating the cleanest food. They were doing a lot of community work, and they were living lives completely out of the system. The life that we've been told is very hard. It is hard, but it's their own life and they're succeeding.
Yeah.
Right? So I felt like it was
in their own
inspiration.
it's a definition of success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely boils down to what your measures of success are.
Yeah.
Right? What is a yardstick that you used to say that you have a good life?
Yeah.
And by my yardstick, they were having a pretty good life. You know, not easy.
Yeah.
But it's their own life, and all the KRAs and KPIs were ticked. So we felt like that was the life that we wanted to be in.
Lovely. And then at what point did you guys decide to get into mushrooms? And weren't you wary of the fact that people don't know much about it, the total, the TAM and all of that stuff?
So interestingly, something about me is that I like to experiment with supplements. I've always been into biohacking and supplements from my college days. Right? So again, I think it was a part of me trying to tap into my body and get the best performance out of it, trying to see how I can be better.
Tell me some of the experiments you've done.
So, for example, simplest thing would be caffeine. Right? So how does caffeine help you with in terms of endurance, in terms of lifting? So what effect does it have? How long does it take to sort of kick in? The literature is always there, but I like to test things on myself. I think the second really nice one would have been creatine. Creatine again is one of those really underrated supplements, right? And for all the folks who don't know what creatine is a performance enhancer that you can take, which is already naturally occurring in your body. And what it does is it works on your body's energy reserves. And what that translates to is more explosive power. But it comes as that extra 1 rep in your bench press, or when you're trying to sprint, that last sprint or that jump, vertical jump. So these are the places where you can see that difference.
Yeah.
So these are the two possible things where I experimented and I found that there was some, interesting results.
And then what convinced you about mushroom?
So one of my friends introduced me to Reishi mushroom extract. And this was around the same time that I'd started my corporate career. And when I moved to Bangalore, I had a really bad bout of allergies. By really bad, I mean I would wake up and start sneezing and my nose would be running for like 3-4 hours. Right? It was pollen and stress and dust and all of those things mixed in. And the doctor prescribed me antihistamines, right? And I was taking it every day because I had to be at work and it would take me, if I didn't take it, it would take me at least time till maybe after lunch for this to stop and for me to at least get into the state where I can do something.
Wow.
So this was helping me sort of bypass all of this and get to work and get things happen. But what happened over time was I started noticing that it was affecting my mood, my motivation and other things that I was...
In what way?
I was getting mood swings, right? I was feeling extremely lethargic and my brain was always foggy.
Okay.
I was not able to think straight. Regular things that would take me very little time. Here I was finding myself in loops where I was doing the same thing again and forgetting where I started. So things I started observing in my way of working.
Okay.
That's when I realized, like, okay, this is having some long-term effect on my cognition and mood, which is not expected.
Yeah.
So that's when my friend gave me the mushroom extract, and that's when I tried it. And I took it with zero expectations. But within almost, I think, around month 3, I started noticing that I didn't need the medicines on an everyday basis. And another 3 months later, I was able to stop it completely.
So you had that for 6 months.
I had it for 6 months. I had it every day for 6 months because
That takes some leap of faith, because when you don't know what it's doing, or you're just trusting your friend who's given you something to try
Right.
which you haven't tried before.
right. The research was there.
Research was
The
there.
research
Okay.
is definitely there. I knew that this is something I had to take in the long term.
So it wasn't just your trust in your friend, it was also you researched about it.
Absolutely. So anything that I put in my body, I want to know what it does.
Okay.
So I'm that curious person who would go and read up blogs about it.
Okay.
Go to PubMed or like Google Scholar, find
Sure.
the papers, right?
Yeah.
I was always that guy.
Okay.
So I gave it a fair shot, and there was times when I felt better. So I started using it regularly. And I knew that regular supplementation is what gave the best results. And after a few months, I could stop the antihistamines altogether.
Okay.
And that's when I was truly convinced of what mushrooms can do. And later when COVID happened, I ran out of these supplements. There was no way to get them from abroad
Yeah.
because everything was coming from USA.
Wasn't that the time you needed them most?
Really, right? So there was this true eureka moment or this aha moment where I was not able to find the product. And Prithvi and I, both of us, we were trying to find it online. And we checked for Indian manufacturers. We couldn't really find anything. And that's when we went down that rabbit hole and figured out that there's nobody in India who is making mushroom extracts or working with these mushrooms in the first place.
So the friend who gave it to you bought them from imported them.
Yeah, he got it from the US.
Okay.
So most of the folks who do engineering from top tier universities, they end up going to the US, right?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's what happened with most of the people I know as well.
Right.
So they went there and they always bring back something. So this is one of those things that they thought I would like.
Right.
And this is how sort of Nuvedo came about.
Yeah. Okay. So that's when you felt the need for it. So for the first time, like you felt the scarcity in India,
Right.
and there was nobody else doing it.
Right. There were people doing it, but it was all white label products from China which had no authenticity.
Okay.
Right. I tried some of the products and they didn't work.
Okay.
So I felt like, okay, this is not doing what it's supposed to do. So there was something that was wrong. Then when I went down that rabbit hole, I figured out that half the products don't even have mushrooms in them.
Oh.
It's just bulk fillers. Many of them are extraction waste because they're literally selling you these products cheaper than you can buy mushrooms. And when they're claiming that they're using 10 kilos of the mushroom to make 1 kilo of this product, it cannot be cheaper than buying the mushrooms. So there I felt like something was up.
Right.
And that's when we realized that we have to grow our own mushrooms and we have to make these extracts ourselves. And now, almost 5 years later, yeah, we made it.
Wow. Brilliant. And then wasn't it tough to decide? Because usually, did you have a lot of money? Because usually
No.
a couple decides to you stick with the job and I'm going to go take chances. Or usually that's what happens.
Right.
But here, both of you plunged into it.
I think inherently both Prithvi and I are risk takers, right? We like the risk, and honestly, we had enough money to be on our own for a couple of years, but not so much saved up that we could build something out of it. And especially when you don't even know what you're going to build,
Yeah.
right? That's also one of the reasons why the organic farming did not kickstart, because honestly, we didn't have enough funds to buy our own land and start it, right? And when you're going to start something and you want to make money out of it, there's this need to commercialize things. And I feel like the ethos of permaculture and organic farming die with that. It's all about working with the land and giving back to the land, right? You take care of the land and it feeds you in return.
Yeah.
The second you add a commercial angle to it, a lot of things just disappear. So we realized that that's not something we want to do. We want to do something where we don't have to compromise on our values, where we can live our truth, be honest and express ourselves honestly on a day-to-day basis. And this was, I felt at that time, the industry that would allow us to do that. And one question you asked was about the awareness and education.
Yeah.
That was basically the key differentiating factor for us, because we felt like you have such a large market of people who are already used to taking natural products to improve their health. It's not like the Western world, which was introduced to allopathy. And then later, after they saw the side effects and when COVID happened, now there's a resurgence of home remedies and traditional healing like Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine and things like that. We have that heritage. Even now, when you fall sick, your mom or your grandma, first thing they'll do is they make you a kashaya
There's
or
a
a
preference
kadha,
for it.
right?
Yeah.
It's part of our life.
Culture. Yeah.
So in a country like this where we're already inclined to taking natural medicine, why will they not use mushrooms? The answer is just awareness
But
and
I think
education.
I heard you or Prithvi talk about this, that it's not recommended in Ayurveda.
Right.
Isn't that a problem?
Again,
Like a problem that you need to overcome?
great question. So everybody brackets mushrooms under tamasic, right? And I feel like there's an obsession with having sattvic things these days, right? Everybody wants to have as many sattvic things in their diet as possible. But I feel like there needs to be a balance in your life. Rajas and tamas are there for a reason, right? There are three gunas which are meant to be balanced. And there are mushrooms which can energize you. So I feel like Ayurveda has a lot of nuanced approach to mushrooms. And if you go deeper into the scripts, there are, places where it mentions specific applications of different mushrooms. But it's just that people haven't gone that deep, right? And there's this misconception that mushrooms are all mushrooms are tamasic.
Okay.
So what makes something sattvic or tamasic also depends on how it's prepared. The same thing when prepared differently can be sattvic or tamasic.
Oh.
What it is mixed with, right? So all of these have an impact on the guna. And another thing a yoga practitioner and Ayurvedic doctor told me is, today is a day where we are overstimulated. Everywhere things are trying to catch our attention and there's just too much stimulation.
Yeah.
So we need some tamas in our lives. We need to be calm. We need those things that can make us calm and peaceful. So I feel like there's a time and place for everything. And to say no to an entire kingdom with over 20,000 types of mushrooms, to put them all in one basket and say that this is not good for me, that's not correct. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. Then.
Awesome.
Teach us about mushrooms. We all, like, the 99.9% of the population knows about mushrooms, the white mushrooms, the button mushrooms that we cook at home.
Right.
Mushroom मटर बनता है हमारे यहाँ तो
Right.
मतलब ये है. And वो भी आधी जनता को पसंद नहीं है क्योंकि it feels like non-veg.
Correct.
That's what people say.
Right.
But there's so much more to mushrooms. And I was really shocked when I heard the judges in Shark Tank saying the silly things that they were saying. Because there is a conversation around mushrooms worldwide.
Right.
And if you listen to podcasts abroad and if you listen to some influencers abroad, they swear by shrooms and shroom supplements.
Right.
And yeah, they can, like, you do take supplementations in form of pills and different things. Now we're discovering that mushrooms can do that. Like something that's occurring in nature can actually help you with maybe anxiety, maybe sleep and depression and so many other things, right? It's a whole world out there that we don't know anything about, which is why I want to have this conversation with you. Teach us about mushrooms.
So first thing is, what is a mushroom, right? Is it a plant? Is it an animal? Actually, it's neither a plant nor an animal. It's a fungus.
Fungi, yeah.
And believe it or not, there's 20 times the number of fungi than there are plants.
Wow.
Just because we don't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. The soil that plants grow on was made by fungi when they broke down rocks, right? So we live in a world where fungi played a big role in creating it and making it the way that it is today. But we don't give them any credit because for the longest time, we did not know what they were. Fungi was studied by plant pathologists. So basically, plant pathologist is somebody who studies things which are attacking pathogens to plants.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
So fungus was considered something that was bad for plants.
Yeah.
That's it. It didn't have its own kingdom. It was not even called, not even given that importance, right? That's because we didn't know much about them and they were very mysterious, that we couldn't put them in any boxes.
Yeah.
That's also something that I really like about them, that the more you
Something
know,
you relate with.
yeah, the more you learn about them, the lesser you know, and the more mysterious they become. And I think that's really fascinating. But a mushroom is actually a fruiting body of a fungus.
Okay.
Out of the millions of species of fungi out there, there are certain species which can form these macroscopic or like large bodies or fruits. Those fungi are called mushroom producing fungi, and the mushroom actually is the fruit of the fungus. So imagine you have a tree and the right season, it gives you a fruit and the fruit has seeds.
Yeah.
The same way, there's a mycelium. Mycelium is the organism, the equivalent of a tree,
Okay.
which is underground or inside a log of wood, under unseen, which is just eating and breaking down things. So they're decomposers, they're nature's recyclers.
Okay.
They are the bridge between life and death. So when something dies, the nutrients in it are made available to other life because fungi break them down, right? So they are the ones who are sort of closing their loop in nature, where they eat dead things and they bring life out of that and make it available for plants and animals to consume.
Brilliant.
Right? So the fungus is something that's underground and the mushroom is something that just sort of grows when the right conditions are there. And what makes mushroom super fascinating and why is there such a lot of like buzz around it is because a bunch of things. First thing is it can be grown on waste.
Okay.
Right? And you've seen the whole save soil and so much talk about soil dying.
Yeah.
It is very
Soil
recent.
erosion.
Yeah, soil erosion, and it's very recently that we realized that the soil is alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That soil has microbes and other living beings, living things which give it that life.
Yeah.
Right? And all these years of severe pesticide use and chemical fertilizers, we're having to use more and more of it again because soil's own ability to replenish itself is being lost. So we need food sources which can be cultivated without soil because temperatures are increasing and cultivable land is reducing.
Yeah.
Population is expanding and we have only so much space on the earth.
Yeah.
Right? That's where mushrooms come in because we grow mushrooms on agri-waste, waste streams from different other industries. So right now, what are the stuff is being burnt or dumped or composted? We can actually use this fungus to extract value out of it or turn it into food and medicine.
Wow.
That's the first thing.
It doesn't need soil.
It doesn't need soil. It can be grown and literally it can be grown anywhere. It's vertically scalable.
Wow.
Right? So imagine we have to move to Mars, right? Like imagine Tesla vision, his vision comes true, Elon Musk's vision comes true and we have to move to Mars. And we're traveling there. If we need to eat something, it has to be something like a fungus which can be grown indoors on a waste material which doesn't need sunlight, where you can cultivate it and short cultivation cycles. Where you have to wait 3-4 months for a plant to give you a yield. From mushroom, you can get your first harvest in 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And they have a bunch of things inside them in terms of bioactives that you are not able to find in plants. Like if you're a vegetarian, you know that you struggle with finding B12 and also full amino acid profile.
Yeah.
Right? That's why you combine pea protein and rice protein so that you have all the amino acids. Mushrooms contain all essential amino acids. Right? And they also have some B vitamins, which otherwise you have to have algae for. There are no vegetarian sources of B vitamins.
Yeah.
Mushroom is one of them. And even vitamin D. Fun fact, if you take a button mushroom or any regular mushroom, keep it under the sun for a few minutes. If you keep it under the sun for 15 to 20 minutes, it can have up to 2,000 IUD, international units of vitamin D. Just by keeping it under the sun. The same way that our skin is able to produce vitamin D, mushrooms can do that too.
Wow. So keep it in this, but then you don't have them raw.
Yeah, don't have them raw. Cook them and eat them.
But if you just like put them in sunlight for a while and then cook them.
Yeah, 15-20 minutes before eating, just keep them in the sun.
They'll be much richer in
vitamin D. You're literally fortifying the mushroom with vitamin D before you're consuming it.
Okay.
Right? So, super sustainable, can be grown anywhere, can be grown on waste, and has a lot of nutrients which are really good for you. Mushrooms are the only, as in the highest protein producing food source per square, meter. If you compare it to traditional agriculture. They have the highest protein per square meter.
Brilliant. Okay.
So these are some of the reasons why mushrooms are really good for you.
Great. And you said there are different types of them, like 20,000 types?
20,000 species of mushrooms. Yes.
Wow. And what are the ones that are known to be relevant to us and can be really helpful?
Again, there's almost 2,000 species out there which have some medicinal properties.
Why have some gained more popularity than others? Like there are 5-6 of them, right?
Right.
That are in mainstream.
Right. So
lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps,
turkey tail.
So
I feel like, again, I don't think there's a direct answer for this. First thing is, what are the ones which are studied, right? What are the ones which can be grown? Because some mushrooms have really great properties, but we can't grow them.
Okay.
Some of them are very, very difficult to grow. For example, some mushrooms, they have symbiotic relationship with certain plants.
Okay.
They only grow in the company of certain plants. So we still don't know how to grow those mushrooms, right? The best example for those is a truffle.
Okay.
That's why truffles are super expensive because they're only found in the company of certain trees,
Oh.
right?
Truffle is the ones you call shrooms, and like shrooms is everything.
Right.
But
No, truffle is a really expensive. It's not a mushroom. It's a bundle of mycelium.
the magic mushroom that we call.
That's a magic truffle that's sold in Amsterdam.
Okay.
But it's the same concept where you have a bundle of mycelium and it's like a round ball, like a tuber which grows underground. And they shave it into pasta and Italian food, and these get sold for like 60,000-70,000 rupees, maybe like a few lakhs a kg.
Wow.
Yeah. So they are really expensive because many of them you can't grow. So to answer your question in a nutshell, the ones that gain popularity are popular because A, they've been studied and they have health benefits which are now not found in other places in nature. And two, because they can be cultivated. The best example I can give you is of lion's mane. Lion's mane is the most popular mushroom right now because of its ability to help you regrow nerve cells. Right? It can stimulate the production of nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor. Both of these things are BDNF.
Yeah, BDNF.
Yeah. NGF and BDNF are buzzwords right now because as soon as you turn 30, your body is not able to produce enough of it. And that's when you start having difficulty learning new things, remembering new things. So this can literally help your body produce new neural pathways in your brain. It can slow down brain aging. It can slow down progression of Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's and dementia are now quite prevalent in the aging population because we never had lifespans like this earlier.
Yeah.
Now people are getting older.
Yeah.
But what's the point of living to 100 if your quality of life is not good? So lion's mane has sort of been researched, and this also happened in the last 10 years. More than 70% of the research that happened in lion's mane happened in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Right? Where they publish papers on healthy people, because usually when they do studies, they do it on sick people to show that this can cure something.
Right.
But recently they've started doing studies on perfectly healthy adults to see how this can enhance your experience or make you even smarter or sharper than you are on a regular basis. Right? So I feel like there's a lot of health benefits in mushrooms that you cannot find anywhere else in nature. And that's sort of why they're becoming popular. And with more studies and more research, we'll find that more and more mushrooms are there which can do more and more things. And this is just the beginning of a revolution.
How long does it take? How long does one have to consume them to experience the benefit and perceivable benefits?
Right. So great question. And so we can look at effects of mushrooms in two ways, right? One is the acute effects, which is basically things that you can feel immediately after consume it.
Yeah.
And then there's a compounding effect, which you feel with regular use. Right. So let's look at both of these things separately. And whatever I'm going to say is on the basis of the research that has happened, where they gave this to adults. And instead of placebo, they were given caffeine.
Okay.
Right? So it's an active placebo where it's also doing something to you.
Right.
And they measured certain parameters in healthy adults to see how they're performing. And they found that 2 hours after taking lion's mane, they felt like the feeling of getting things done. That's what they were used in the survey. The feeling of getting things done was highest at the 2-hour mark. So basically they were feeling like they were able to do more work. So you can feel a slight improvement in your focus and in your ability to get things done with a single dose. But if you're looking to be smarter, let's say if you're looking to see improvements in your working memory or in your cognitive performance, the cognitive scores improved over a 16-week period. So they had to use it for around 4 months and there was a continuous increase in their cognition.
Okay.
But we are not testing our cognitive abilities with any tests, right?
Yeah.
So the main question here is, how do you make people understand what this is doing?
Yeah.
And that's something that we struggle with also.
Yeah.
How do you set that expectation when it's working on your own body's ability to do things where you're not feeling so different than you feel regularly? Because all of us are used to OTC or pills that we pop and suddenly everything just disappears in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But your body doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And what mushrooms do is they work with your body's own ability to do certain things, right? Because it's helping your body produce those chemicals which it normally does. So here the question was, how do you make people feel or understand what it's doing?
Yeah.
But it has both effects. To answer your question, there are effects that you can feel after one use, and there are certain effects that happen with regular use.
Yeah.
But maximum result comes with regular use.
Regular use.
Yes.
Okay. And different mushrooms have different effects. Like, for example, reishi is good for something else.
Right.
For sleep and calming you.
Right. So reishi, for all those of you who don't know, in China it's called the herb of immortality. So the story goes that it was a mushroom which they used to find in the forest growing in 1 in 10,000 trees.
Wow.
Right? It was a rare mushroom that they would find in the forest. And whenever they would find it, it was almost always reserved for like noblemen and kings, royal families to use it. Because it's something rare.
Okay.
Right? And they found that the scriptures say that the noblemen who consumed reishi, they had much healthier skin, they looked younger, they aged slower, they lived longer, they felt sick lesser. And now we know that reishi being the most researched mushroom in the world, there are over 7,000 studies. Around 7,000 studies with just the keyword Ganoderma on PubMed, right?
What's Ganoderma?
Ganoderma lucidum is a scientific name of reishi,
Okay.
right? So basically it's the most researched mushroom in the world, and now we found that it does a bunch of things, and the most fascinating part is its ability to reduce stress and improve your quality of sleep, right?
Yeah.
So it's able to make you, basically the parameters that they measured were how long you were able to stay asleep for, and if there was any change in your REM and non-REM sleep. So they basically tracked sleep and the quality of sleep.
Yeah.
They found that the sleep time was longer and the quality of sleep, it was much deeper sleep. People were not getting disturbed much, right? And the interesting thing was, they wanted to know why, right? Okay, great, it's helping you sleep.
Yeah.
But what is it doing? When they checked to find out what it was doing, they found that it was working on almost 53 different genetic pathways in your body which are responsible for you to fall asleep.
Wow.
Melatonin tackles one of them.
Really?
Yeah. Melatonin is essentially, you're just taking...
That's what we thought. Melatonin is all we need.
Right. Melatonin, it works great.
Yeah.
But when you give your body external sources of melatonin, over time, your body is really smart and it's meant to be efficient.
Correct. It'll stop producing.
Right? Yeah. And then you have a problem. You have a bigger problem than what you started with.
Dependency, big time. And then, but they all say it's non-habit forming. But it is.
Right. So because we have enough results now, enough anecdotal evidence from users who have stopped melatonin because they used to use it infrequently, maybe a couple of times a week. And before you know it, you're taking it daily.
Yeah.
And that didn't really help. In terms of reishi, it does wild things to help you fall asleep. Like when they gave it to mice and they examined the intestine, they found that the gut microbiome has been altered by reishi.
That's amazing. I wanted to ask you actually, what does it do to the gut microbiome? Because that's
Right.
going to be interesting.
So basically, your gut microbiome is a population of various microorganisms inside your gut, right? And there are good, there are bad, there are ugly, there are really good ones in there. And then that balance is out of tune. That's when you start having difficulties, right? Certain populations, if they're too much, you start craving certain foods, you start having certain disorders.
Yeah.
So the people who took the reishi extract, it was bringing down the population of all the inflammation causing bacteria and fungi, and also promoting the growth of the other ones which are responsible for improved sleep quality.
Wow.
Right. Because people now know that a lot of the feel-good chemicals and compounds inside your body, it's all produced in your gut.
Yeah.
Because of the gut-brain axis.
We've done 2 episodes with a gut health expert.
Right. So gut is basically very, very important for how you function. And Ganoderma and most mushrooms are able to go inside your gut and work with your body's immune system to even balance out the different populations of different gut bacteria, because mushrooms have antimicrobial properties. They have a ability to defend itself from certain microbes in the environment. That's also the reason why reishi mushrooms specifically, if you go into any park, you'll see that mushrooms are on the same tree for months. Not a single thing has eaten it up or attacked it. The same way that we get attacked by pathogens.
Yeah.
Even mushrooms or fungi have other bacteria, viruses and other fungi which eat them.
Yeah.
The reason that reishi is able to stay without degrading for so many months in nature and still look strong is because there's so many compounds which are preventing other organisms from eating it. And those are the same things that work on us.
Okay.
We share 50%, more than 50% of our DNA with fungi.
Mushroom?
Yeah.
Fungi.
So that's why antibiotics work on us. Why would a compound that a fungus made to prevent, to to fight a bacteria work on us. Because we still have a lot in common with how they defend themselves, right? So those compounds, what they made for themselves,
Yeah.
when we take it, it works for us also. So reishi is again really good mushroom for sleep and also for modulating your immune system. So immunomodulation
Yeah,
is another thing.
I think an important thing to note here is when you will consume them in whatever supplement form or whatever, if you're used to taking, let's say, melatonin supplements,
Right.
this is going to feel different. It's
Absolutely.
Not, it does not like you have it and you feel like a little drowsy, like melatonin makes you feel immediately.
Right.
But it'll probably calm you down, which is, and that's also with prolonged use.
I would say the best results come with consistent use,
Yeah.
right? Like anything else in life, you have to take it for a good amount of time for it
Yeah.
to start doing things. And I also feel like if you have a goal in mind, right? Let's say you are working towards improving your sleep quality. Even if you take reishi, if you're going to sit on your phone and doom scroll till 2
Yeah,
a.m., it's
exactly.
not going to make you fall asleep.
Correct.
If you're having a coffee at 8 p.m. and you're trying to sleep at 1 a.m.,
Yeah.
reishi is not going to do anything,
Correct.
right? So I feel like you have to set the right expectations. These are tools that can help you get results, but you have to be working towards it.
Absolutely.
The mushroom is not going to give you motivation to
Yeah.
fall asleep or get energized or focus. If you have the intention and you're working towards those goals,
Yeah.
these are tools that can remove the friction and help you get there faster.
Mm.
That's how I see it.
Super. And cordyceps? You know, tell us about
Cordyceps,
that?
again, one of my favorite
Yeah.
mushrooms. And it's also one of the reasons how we started talking.
Yeah.
So, Cordyceps, again, fantastic mushroom for energy. And when I say energy, people think it's like coffee. It's nothing like caffeine. There is no stimulation, which means there is no crash. You don't feel any different. But when I say energy, suddenly at the end of the day, you've had a really exhausting, tiring day, but you still feel like you can do more. So it's your internal capacity to do work that increases with Cordyceps. So it does a bunch of things for you. The acute effects are vasodilation and bronchodilation, which means it dilates your blood vessels and your lungs, which means you're having now more oxygen inside your blood, right? At a cellular level, it's working in the mitochondria. So mitochondria is where all
The energy center
of your cell, right? It's improving ATP production.
Yeah.
So at a cellular level, it's tuning our body to be more efficient with energy. So in a really cool study when they did forced swimming in rats, and I was really curious to find out how this works in your system, right? What they did was they made rats do a forced swimming test, and they tried to measure certain parameters in their blood. One of the things that they did was they measured glycogen levels in their liver. So glycogen is something that's broken down inside the liver to give you glucose in the blood, which is what gives you energy when you do endurance activities.
Correct.
Right? And when you don't have enough energy, when you're pushing yourself past a certain point, is when you hit
the wall.
Yeah, the lactic acid threshold, when your body is anaerobic state, when cramps start happening, when it starts to pain, right? So what Cordyceps does is, this is wild. When they checked the liver glycogen levels in rats which had Cordyceps, the liver glycogen levels were way higher, which means that there was a continuous supply of glucose going from your liver into your bloodstream. Whereas in the other rats that got depleted and then it was breaking down muscle. Basically, once you run out of calories, you start breaking down your muscles to get energy.
Yeah.
And that causes, muscle breakdown and injuries, right? Here, that didn't happen. So they were able to go longer in the aerobic state because your liver was functioning way better. And this is also why it has a good application in diabetes, because it regulates your blood sugar levels.
Wow.
Right? Very, very interesting things. And all of these things are things that we found.
Type 2 diabetes, it helps with?
Yeah.
Like, so you're saying type 2 diabetic people, if they consume cordyceps
extract
long enough, which is what? 4 months? 3, 4 months?
3 to 4 weeks, they will be able to see a result.
Okay, so in about a month or two, they should be able to see better blood sugar regulation.
Absolutely. Again, I'm not a medical practitioner or a doctor or qualified to give any medical advice.
Yeah.
These are things that I have read, and we have anecdotal evidence from a few of our clients who are diabetic who have used this and have found that it's good for you.
Okay.
But if anybody is watching this and they're diabetic, please don't stop your medication.
Yeah.
Consult your doctor before you do anything. Because there are cases where you stop the medication or you take it with medication, your blood sugar levels can even go lower than it's supposed to, which is not a good thing.
Right.
So speak to your doctor and see what they have to say. But there is evidence that it can help diabetes.
Brilliant, sir. What's the mission you're on?
The mission is very simple: to bring the healing benefits of mushrooms to the people and the planet. That's it. As many people as we can, we want to reach, and as much waste as we can use to grow these mushrooms, we want to get it out of the ecosystem.
So, this documentary on Netflix about, and I'm forgetting the name.
Fantastic
about
Fungi?
Was that the one? Where they talk about the benefits of psilocybin. No,
Right.
how to change your
How
mind.
to change your mind?
Yeah.
Right. Michael Pollan.
Michael Pollan. Yes, he was on Rich Roll as well, I think, and probably Joe Rogan as well.
Right.
Talking about mushrooms and psilocybin and stuff. We've not even talked about. And
Right.
do you think that will at any point, anytime soon, be in the conversation in India?
Absolutely. It's already happening. So we have a really good friend of ours, Dr. Gokul. He's from Nimhans. Nimhans is the foremost institute in India for mental health, right? They're the ones who are doing cutting edge science in this space. So he's sort of spearheading this movement. He's getting permissions to do India's first clinical trial with psilocybin, right? And it's underway. So we will have access to this soon. How soon, I don't know. Keeping a fingers
No, but
crossed.
the fact that you're saying first trial is going to happen, that just means like we the conversation is not there at the moment. At the moment, we're nowhere like close to.
No, not in the next couple
accessing
of
any
years
of
at
this.
least,
Ha.
right? So, but it's kickstarted. It's not like no work is happening, but there are people who are taking this forward.
Yeah, and there are proven benefits. Like there's conversation about it overseas,
Right.
quite a bit.
It's a big trend now. But if you look at the documentary and if you look at the science, the first ever official clinical trial that happened with psilocybin happened in Canada, where a bunch of cancer patients who were diagnosed terminally ill. Basically, they knew they were going to die.
Yeah.
They have end of life anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. And no antidepressant and no other drugs were working on them. So they went against the government and they filed a case saying that this is our fundamental right to have a happy death.
Yeah.
And those are the first people to use this.
Wow.
Right. And they ranked the psilocybin experience as the top 2 or top 3 experiences in their life. Like the birth of their first child, or how they felt there when their parents passed away, or when they got married, right? This was clubbed right there. And the important thing to note is that they were given this under medical supervision.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just go and pop a mushroom and expect that it's going to do anything, right? They were given this mushroom under medical supervision, under specific protocols. Even the music playlist was curated. Which room they were sitting in, the male and female therapist being there, how the experience was, every single aspect of it was pre-decided, just like how a treatment is, right? So it was done with the utmost seriousness, and that's why the results were predictable or it came out positive. Because many times what happens is people feel like if they just take it, it's going to cure them of depression.
Yeah.
It might make it worse. And it's not for everybody.
Exactly.
They screen these people to make sure that they don't have any underlying mental illness which might become worse, right? So there's a lot of things that happen in the background to make sure that they have a positive experience. So the bottom line is it's great for mental health, but under the right conditions, and it may not be good for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And supervision is important.
Absolutely.
Because you have no idea what kind of trip you might have.
Absolutely.
But the study that you're talking about, it was curated and given under medical supervision. That wasn't the only study that's done on this.
There's plenty.
There have been many now,
There have been
right?
plenty. There's more to do with addiction.
Yeah.
So one of the, again, really popular studies which happened a long time ago was against alcoholism, where they gave people psilocybin, and many of them, I don't have the statistics right now, but a lot of them quit for good, right? They quit for good. Some people relapsed again after a few months, but it was, I think, in history, if you look at all the treatments that they have had for alcoholism, this was one of the most effective ones. But what happened was, because of the whole war on drugs and hippies and Vietnam, all of this stuff got pushed under the rug.
Correct.
And it never saw the light of day till now.
It's now opening up again.
It's called the psychedelic renaissance that's happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it was made extremely political.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Jashid. Is there anything that you want to talk about and how I haven't let you talk about?
I feel like just want to share my journey in running, right? Because that's what is the common interest between both of us that got to start, who got us talking.
Yes.
So I started my journey almost now it's my third year, and I used to hate running.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely hated it. I used to find it extremely boring.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not somebody who likes.
Despite being an outdoorsy person who
Yeah.
likes sports.
I like sports, but I don't like anything monotonous.
Right.
That's why martial arts and basketball, very fast-paced stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I never liked running.
Yeah.
And how this happened was, again, it was a curiosity. Before we started selling the Cordyceps extract, I was like, I wanted to know what it does.
Hmm.
Before I could see the results of Cordyceps, I actually fell in love with running, because 2-3 weeks of doing it 2-3 times a week,
Yeah.
I started liking it slowly, right? And before you know it, I was running 3 times a week, and in a few months I was doing 20 kilometers in a week. It became 100, and I really enjoyed it.
Wow.
And it got me in tune with my body, because that was a time when I had completely burned myself out doing work for the company, for Nuvedo, and I was not taking care of my health, because hustle culture is normalized now, right? Burning the midnight oil, and keep hustling, but you can only do that if you're healthy.
Yeah.
And it quickly became bad for me. I lost almost 10 kilos. I had IBS. It was terrible, and I feel like running helped me get in tune with my body again. It put me back in my body, because you're doing something repetitive for 90 minutes,
Yeah.
right? You have a lot of time to think about, ruminate, feel certain things. So for me, I felt like it was amazing, because it helped me get in touch with my body. And one thing also it made me understand is to appreciate the cycles of fitness. That's something I learned from you also. You can't maintain that.
Yeah.
So when you reach that peak, right? When you train and you train and you train and you reach that peak of your fitness, those few runs that you do when you are at the peak, the pace that you're able to maintain, I savor it.
You feel like an animal.
Right?
Yeah.
You feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that doesn't last too long. Right? You can't keep it that way also, because we are not athletes. Right? We are regular folks.
Absolutely.
Who are trying to do this in the spare time that we have.
Yeah.
So I feel like I really enjoyed that journey of seeing that progress, hitting that peak, and letting it go.
Yeah.
Right? Letting it go. Because again, the learning for me was I tried to really push it and I got injured. And my friends tell me, unless you get an injury, you're not a proper runner. Right? So they're like, welcome to the club now.
Yeah.
Have plantar fasciitis.
Right.
Now you're a proper runner.
Yeah.
So for me, the learning from that was take it easy.
Yeah.
Be on the middle path.
Absolutely.
Right? It might be boring. The zone 2 is not exciting.
Yeah.
But the zone 2 is what's going to get you
exactly
to your peak performance. So running is amazing. Something I'm very grateful for.
No, absolutely. And did you mention you hit 100 kilometers a week mileage?
Month. Week is still far from now. I hit 100 kilometers a month. For me, it was a big milestone.
Right.
Starting from zero.
Right, because I was like 100 kilometers a week is ultra runners.
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot. It's a lot. Right. I don't think I would have been able to do that because my training was not very scientific. Now, after the injury, I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it slow.
Yeah.
I'll get back into it soon.
No, when we start running, and we haven't been running all our lives, we quickly our cardio, like this is the way Milind Soman puts it, and he explains it beautifully. When you start running, your cardiovascular capacity improves, is the first one to improve.
Right.
Quickly it improves and you feel like you can do a hell of a lot more. But muscles and tendons, they're not used to that load.
Absolutely.
And it's repetitive, and small mistakes compound over a long time, and then then injury happens.
Right, yeah, wearing the wrong shoes, wrong socks.
Yeah.
Right.
And the form, like and shoes,
Learning
by the way,
form.
shoes is another big problem. So barefoot is actually much better.
Right.
Yeah. But now that you've tasted that beautiful sport that running is,
Right.
let me give you an insight into what happens when you go longer.
Right.
Okay, so
right,
you've done 100 kilometers a month,
Right.
right? So when you go longer, let's say so I've experienced this very few times, okay? There are
Right.
these stages that come in running.
Right.
So let's say you're doing an ultra marathon of 100 miles or something,
Right.
okay? First 20-30 kilometers, your body begins to hurt.
Right.
Let's say 100 miles. So everything in the body is going to hurt. Legs,
Right.
shin, calf, everything will start to pain. And you have to get past that stage of physical pain.
Right.
And you're like, okay, dard kitna hi ho jaye, I'm not going to stop. So this is not going to make me stop. I am reaching for the finish. I have a long way to go. That's what you're focusing on. And you're like, physical pain is not going to stop me today.
Right.
So in a way, you conquer physical pain there.
Right.
And then you carry on. So 50-60 kilometers into the run, you reach the next stage, which is some sort of a mental stage where mental chatter is at its peak. It's going to give you the brain's very smart, right? It's not
Right.
going to tell you that you can't do this. Jashid, give up. You're a piece of shit. You're not going to be able to do it. Brain will never tell you that.
Right.
Brain will give you logical, good reasons. Dude, you just started your business. Your attention is needed there. You don't want to get injured. The pain
Right.
that you're ignoring is going to be hairline fracture. You can't afford that. You have a foreign trip coming up.
Right.
All that chatter. And you're almost convinced, like, yeah, dude, you're right. And maybe it's not. Aaj tera din nahi hai, aaj chhod de.
Huh.
Today's a bad day.
Yeah, you already reached maybe 70. Ho
Exactly,
gaya.
70.
That's
Haan,
good.
and, who's going to
bahut hai.
question,
Haan,
right? So but with experience, you realize that's your brain doing the talking. You still have hell of a lot in you. So if you carry on and get past that stage, so you've conquered physical pain, you've conquered mental chatter. The next stage is actually some sort of an in-between stage where you're
Okay.
just getting exhausted and emotionally exhausted, which is where you don't know what to feel and you don't know why you're doing this, and you're like, and which is why you'll see a lot of ultra runners just crying and running for long periods of time. Yeah, they're just crying for no reason. Like you reach an aid station and you hug the person at the aid station and you're like, why are you here? Why are we like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I have no idea what are you doing here in the middle of the jungle at this time. Right? So you're very emotional, and that emotional stage also makes you, feel the pointlessness in everything and makes you want to quit. But if you get past that also, okay, now that's when you experience the fourth stage, and which is not something that I would say that everybody experience at all times.
Mhm.
I've experienced this only once in my
Right.
first 100K. I've done longer distances after that, and I've
Right.
not reached that stage.
Right.
Okay. So in the fourth stage, what happens is what I felt was I had blisters and I had bleeding in my foot and I had lots of pain and I was exhausted and I was like around 70, 80 kilometer, 80, perhaps 80 kilometer mark. I was like, this is it. This is all I have.
Done.
Right. But my desire to complete that was so strong. I was like, aaj jo marzi ho jaye. I'm
Right.
not giving
Let's
up.
do it.
So I went for it, and I didn't give up at all these three stages. The fourth stage, I carried on running, and that's the stage I suddenly felt I could just zoom out of that. Suddenly I could see this person, this being, just running with so much pain and emotions and everything that's going on there. But it's not affecting me anymore. Like I can see this person. I could almost zoom out and have that experience that I could see this person who's running and has so much energy now. And like next 10, 15 kilometers were a breeze. It was almost like your feet are now padded and you're like, that there is pain, but it's not affecting you. In that moment, you have the glimpses, like, and you have this feeling that maybe this body isn't me. Maybe there's definitely something more driving me, because I haven't had any supplements.
Right.
Like, it's not like I've had like 3 energy gels suddenly and I'm like all
Right.
crazy
Right,
about this.
right.
Nothing. It just, you tap into those reserves of energy which are there. But we never tap into them because we never reach that stage of exhaustion.
Right.
And I tell the story to my ex-boss, who's my mentor as well. And he says, Vipin, that's depletion of glucose. I'm like, and I'm like, I call that a spiritual experience.
I was just gonna say that it sounds like
Yeah.
a really spiritual experience. Sounds
Yeah.
like a psychedelic experience.
It
where
is.
where you're an observer and you have the
Yeah.
realization that you are not this body.
Yeah.
Right? And,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
And you get the glimpses of it and you're like, yeah, there is so much more when you've like 3 stages before, 80 kilometers before you had felt like this is it. And then you could go that far, and then you could go that far, and then when you felt that this is it, you could even go further.
Right.
That is a stage, like that's where you're digging in deep to extract energy and motivation and everything. So that's what ultra running does, and which is what actually keeps you coming back to this sport.
Right.
Because you finish an ultra marathon and you're like, okay, this is it, never again. And then
Next year
before
again
you
your
know-
race.
Next year, the moment you get home, you're like looking for the next
Next
one.
one.
Yeah.
It's a high.
Yeah, it is
And
definitely
a
a
spiritual
high.
experience.
Exactly. High is a good one because life is like that. You live your life like that.
Right.
There's, and then you suddenly run an ultra marathon and there's a graph goes like that. And then it does come down below the baseline as well, for
Right,
sure. Like
right,
you do experience other emotions as well.
So
There's a low as well.
my entry, or like I was exposed to ultra running through the book Born to Run. Right? Amazing book.
Yeah.
Again, really got me passionate about running.
Yeah.
And you don't even get it. There's no podium. There's no
Yeah.
medals. Everybody gets the same finisher
Exactly.
belt buckle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody is getting a belt buckle which just said they finished it, and why would you even aim for a first? It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Which I felt kind of cool. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, but Christopher McDougall. I think there's a Born to Run 2 that is out now.
Yeah?
And that's
Okay.
making waves, and people say that it's better than the
Really?
first one,
Okay.
which is,
Now I'm gonna check it out.
yeah, it's got to be, I haven't read it either, but it's got to be pretty good. Lovely chatting, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This
Thank
was
you so much for making
amazing.
time.
Hoping to run with you sometime. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's manifest
absolutely.
that.
But you don't have time. Like you got a pact tomorrow, and
I'll
but
be
next
back.
time whenever.
Yeah, that's what I'm
whenever
saying. I'll
you're
be back.
here.
I'm sure our paths will cross
For sure.
somewhere in
For
some
sure.
run.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much
Wonderful,
for having me.
sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for making time and doing this.
Thanks a
Cheers.
lot.
Thank you.